by the wolves.
All right, folks, emergency podcast time with the short intro. Will, we're losing a coach.
We hardly knew ye officially.
So when the rumor got out there, I'm sure everybody started thinking, when everybody heard that, there's probably going to be some assistant turnover. I'm sure the first name that came to mind was Kurt Roper and his empty office. But it looks like George McDonald is leaving to go to Illinois to be the wide receivers coach, joining former NC State coach Aaron Henry, who is there as a defensive backs coach on Brett Bielema's staff at Illinois.
First question. Did we create this whole drama around Kurt Roper's empty office? Is that a red and white podcast that's filtered through?
Yes, we brought that up. I pointed it out with a tweet, and then ever since there's been more and more mentions of it. So we totally have credit for that one. Yes.
Our hidden army and all the message boards.
That's right. Now, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with this one. His contract was up, and George McDonald, I guess they're just not being retained, is how they say it. Interesting, nonetheless. He was the lone holdover from the previous staff, or I say the previous staff, Dave Dorn's previous staff. Right, we have a completely new staff now.
Yeah, I don't know yet how to feel about this. My first instinct, honestly, is maybe he is someone. He did a good job, I guess, as far as getting the most maybe that he could out of our guys. You've got 2 wide receivers in the NFL right now that are fringe contributors. Depends on the year, kind of thing, right? And then Hines, I don't know if he actually was involved with recruiting him, but he started at a wide receiver. So, I'll give him a little credit there. Is this a big loss?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I always wonder. So we've had some good wide receivers, and the wide receivers have gotten better between last year and this year. My question is going to be like, whose responsibility was it for recruiting wide receivers, and why don't we have any fast ones? Right? Where did that responsibility fall? I don't know. I don't know whose directive that was under. That part makes me wonder.
Yeah,
it's an yeah. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I've never understood that. Yeah, so if that's on him, then that's on him. He seems like a good guy, someone that was at least trusted in name, at least to be a co-offensive coordinator. Clearly stuck around, wanted to be around at least for another year. It seemed didn't bail like Des did. I guess the question is, because we only have a few minutes here before one of us has to get back to something very important. Where does this leave us? Who are there any names? Is there anyone you think we should be looking at? Do we look at Tim Beck's history or Dave's history, or what do you think?
Yeah, I would probably say Tim Beck's history. I'm sure I'll say easy names. The names that are going to pop up are going to be somebody like Torrey Holt, because that just name always pops up, and it's a wide receiver. And Philip Rivers just retired, and we'll get to that at another podcast. But all the emotions are coming back, and people are like, "Yeah, bring Torrey Holt back, bring Torrey Holt." And
I thought you were going to say bring Philip.
Yeah, bring Philip. No, let's ease into that one. I'll have my thoughts on that one another time. But Torrey Holt, right? He's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. Should be a Hall of Fame wide receiver, and in the area. But I know he's got other businesses. Does he even want to do it? I don't know. He'd be a good recruiter. He's got the personality.
Hasn't that always been the argument, is that he's got bigger stuff in his personal life that he'd rather focus on with work than come back?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably. It would make sense. I could see him at some point, if the interest changes. I could see that happening. I would look to the Alabama staff. How many analysts do they have? They have like Alex Mortensen and Major Applewhite, both have wide receiver coaching experience. Or you look at Texas staff with or Texas former staff. Corby Meekins was the wide receiver coach under Beck at Texas. Maybe there's a connection there.
What about Marshall? Maybe someone from Doc Holliday's staff. They've just been released.
That's true.
Would Gibson, being a West Virginia man, have any connection to any of those folks? Is Doc Holliday an option?
That's a good point. I think Doc Holliday's too old. He probably doesn't want to. Right?
Probably.
I would take a guess that he's not going to take a wide receiver coach job. He'll probably just retire. He's 60-something. I'm trying to pull up their wide receiver coaching.
Because I was trying to remember, at one point I thought we were kicking the tires with someone on the Marshall staff a year or two ago. Maybe it was around special teams or tight ends. I don't think Goebel came from there.
I think Goebel did come from there.
Well, maybe then, yeah. So maybe that's, if he did, so if we'd had more time before this, Evan, maybe we could have. This is what happens when you try to break news for the people, I guess.
Yeah, I'll put this out there after the announcements went out there. But Dallas Baker is was the Marshall wide receiver coach. He's a Florida graduate, drafted by the Steelers. I don't know. That's an interesting one. Is he looking for a job?
Goebel was from Marshall, so maybe something to keep an eye on.
What I would think, they would use this opportunity to find somebody who can recruit. Right? It's an important position. You have the talent, but use it as somebody who can be an aggressive recruiter. And the reason I mention that is like Brian Hartline. That's where he started. Right? He was a wide receiver. And then eventually, after playing, became a wide receiver coach. And I think he's an OC now, or going to be an OC at some point. But relentless recruiter, right? Use that. I think that's another guy that the staff can need. I think McDonald had that personality. Everybody likes him. I know him. I know his family. They're good people. And, he's got real good personality. And I imagine they're going to use that spot to find somebody else to be a, dynamic recruiter. So that's who.
Yeah, I wanted to go back and look at some of the guys that he recruited, because I think, did we move him over to the Charlotte territory?
Yeah, I believe so.
So, that's going to be critical, right? And so, there's definitely going to be a huge emphasis on recruiting, unless there's someone on the staff that they want to slide in there. It would be interesting to go back and look at how many of the wide receivers he necessarily recruited, because it's not, you don't always recruit your position. So I'd be curious just to go back and see, who he was listed under. Obviously he's very important.
I'm pulling it up from the last class, George McDonald's recruits, and you never know like how involved they are. But Micah Crowell, Julian Gray, so those are wide receivers coming in. Mario Love, Demi Sumo, Jacob Baldwin, and Sean Brown. So 2 DBs, a running back, and 3 wide receivers.
All skill position guys.
Skill position guys. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I guess we wanted something to talk about for a couple weeks.
Right.
There's not going to be that big old assistant coach gathering thing that we can usually bank on that they do every year.
Last year he brought in Porter Rooks, Chris Scott, Claude Larkins? ?
Who? I can't.
Maybe weak side defensive end, Claude Larkins. He's listed under George McDonald and Josh Crabtree. So again, wide receivers only.
Okay.
Yeah, Claude Larkins. Who is this guy?
Is that someone on the team?
It's what it says. Rivals has him as a 3-star prospect. Claude Larkins, weak side defensive end from Hollywood, Florida.
Is he on the roster?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's I'm going to do a quick look. This is breaking news. People hear us type, please. He's not showing up on the 2020 roster. Oh, yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. He's a freshman. Yeah. From Chaminade, Madonna.
Must be a walk-on?
Well, I'll say it. Well, I got about 2 minutes, Evan. What are we leaving the people with here on this emergency pod?
What are we leaving them with? I don't know. I think it's an opportunity to upgrade. Looking back, 2019 George McDonald commits Chris Tootle, Cecil Powell, and Keon Lassane. Right? If you try to be objective looking back at our wide receivers, they have been good possession receivers and not dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, but they also recruited to that too. So, I mean, that's a question again, right? Who was running that philosophy? It clearly seems to have changed over the last few years, or last two
Right.
cycles. Yeah, it'll be, I don't know, this is exciting. Now we get something to speculate on for a week or two. This is good.
Yeah, we're going to put together a little bit of potential coaching candidates list out of probably nowhere, but we've got a few people looking at it right now. And we'll get back. We'll get back to work since apparently he thinks he needs to work all day, but we're under 11 minutes. Will, you made it. And as always, thanks for listening. Go Pack.
Go Pack.
All right, folks, I'm back. Will is gone. Apparently he had to do some work, but I wanted to add a couple things. George McDonald is from Illinois. It was his alma mater, so he's probably, why we initially thought, hey, maybe this is a lateral move or kind of strange. At least he's going home. It's kind of that. It's got that feel to it. His contract was up, time to go. Maybe he wanted to go. Maybe he wanted to change. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the Pod Army's put together a few candidates. We looked at G5 schools that overachieved, and there's a couple of names out here that really stand out. I'll read the whole list. Two guys that we already mentioned. Applewhite and Mortensen are both analysts for Alabama right now. Anytime somebody's an analyst, you can probably poke them away. Kevin Beard, I think, is really interesting. He's the wide receivers coach at Toledo, and they've had some really good wide receivers the last couple of years. Two, in fact, were guys that nobody really wanted, but also could be two of the nation's best wide receivers. It's one of the best tandems they've had for a couple of years now. He was the wide receivers coach at Tennessee in 2017. Tennessee had a couple of good wide receivers then. It's Jawan Jennings and Marquez Callaway. They're both really good for UT at that time. He's part of the Miami 2001 national championship team. He's from Miami, connected to South Florida. There's that. And then there's Keenan Bailey, who's an analyst at Ohio State, working with Brian Hartline, who is the wide receivers coach there and an excellent recruiter. So maybe he's got some of that juice. Then there is also not the opportunity, but the chance that Doran promotes from within. I don't know what you do from a staff standpoint. If you go with, a wide receiver who's on staff, who's been your GA, Gavin Locklear, he's been there a while. Is that too big of a step? I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's doing well and you give him that chance, and Doran will, it's possible he could give him that chance. He's got that personality. He's very vivacious and enthusiastic on the sideline, and maybe he's a good recruiter. Maybe give him a chance and see what he can do. I'm curious there. I'd like to see. I'm not sure what direction they're going to go in, but I wanted to add a couple of bits there. There's a lot of possibility. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Does he go for experience, or does he go for energy and youth and a fresh perspective? I think it's probably the latter, recruiter, an energetic guy. So, yeah, we'll see. Looks like Football Scoop has caught on, and they just pushed their story. So I'll be able to put this podcast out here in a few minutes. But as always, thanks for listening. I wanted to add that part in there. Or maybe even a high school coach, right? Are there any high school coaches out there that, are showing some promise that want the opportunity to get into the college game? Again, a lot of ways to go here. We'll be curious what kind of list Dave puts together. And I'm sure he's already got one put together if McDonald doesn't have a staff or didn't have a contract. But anyway, the more to come, I'm sure. We'll see. Thanks for listening. As always, go Pack.